Get a TPU, they say. Install Frigate. How hard could it possibly be? What a crazy 2 weeks journey this has been. Would you join me on this next episode of Homebrew Computing as we discuss how to install a Coral TPU and Frigate on your true NAS scale box? All right, let's get on with this week's episode. So I want to give a quick breakdown of all the stuff that we're going to be using to achieve this goal for this video. And we're first going to start with the TPU. So most of the videos I've watched out there, everybody uses the USB variety of this product, but I wanted to use the M.2 slot that was available on the motherboard when I took the Wi-Fi card out. It looks very similar to this. I mean, there's no difference in it. This is the Intel Wi-Fi card that was in that thing, and we're actually going to use the same holder and place that TPU inside of our true NAS scale box that we built a couple months ago. Now, there is one caveat to this. I found out later on that this was a by one slot, not a by two. And that's kind of unfortunate because this is a 2-TOPS TPU, and each TPU or each tensor processing unit needs one lane of PCI in order to operate. So I'm only going to be able to take advantage of one of the TPUs, but that is okay. This is just for testing. So what kind of camera are we going to use? Guys, we're going to use just this very cheap IP camera that I had found laying around at work. We use these and pair it with another system, but this is a spare that we have, and I brought it home to give it a try. Can we give this camera object detection using Frigate? So that is the goals behind this. I really want to go a little bit further. I want to actually take this TPU and actually do some machine learning with it. And I don't know much about that, but I get asked a lot about AI and what I know. And so I feel like this is just my first step into that adventure. I may actually start tearing down Frigate to figure out how does it achieve object detection in another video. I think that would be good to break that down because most people talk about the install and they just leave it at that. Well, let's get on with actually adding the TPU to the NAS, and then after that, we'll get to the installation, which is quite cumbersome because there is a issue that is not well known other than a couple of articles that I've seen, and it's about Google not keeping the repository up to date with the latest kernel or the driver that will work with the latest kernel of Linux. So, all right, let's move on with the installation of the TPU. This will be a sped up run through version of that. So I hope if you want to skip through the install, go ahead and skip through it. But just if you want to watch it, it's about 4 minutes long. All right, let's get on with the install of the TPU. now that we have our TPU installed, it is time to set up our virtual machine. And there are a couple of things we got to do first before we get started. We're going to create a hard drive or a disk for Frigate. I know a lot of people in other videos use an SMB share, or they do an iSCSI target to store their clips. But being for testing purposes, I did not find that necessary. So it's real easy to get a disk. We're going to make it 1 terabyte in size, and then we have to also do some PCI pass-through on this virtual machine. So a PCI pass-through of our TPU and also our graphics card, because depending on the video format that you send over, Frigate requires transcoding, and if you do, I think it's H.264, 265, it will throw a fit if you do not have a graphics card to be able to transcode that video. So that is the requirements to get Frigate up and going on TrueNAS. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Dataset, where we want to make our new disk. We're going to add a ZVOL. We'll call it Frigate Storage. Comments, we'll leave that, and we're going to make it 1 terabyte for just this testing purposes. And we'll leave everything else default. There's no need to change those default settings. All right, so we have our new disk ready for Frigate, but in this case, we're going to wait to attach it until after we get the machine up and going. So let's go to virtualization. Let's go to add, select our operating system, which will be Linux. We'll call this Frigate. And description we'll leave blank. All this is default until we get down here. We will put our password in. And we need this display in order to be able to get in it to set up Ubuntu. That's always a tongue twister for me. Ubuntu. So we're going to give this 4 cores, 1 virtual CPU, 4 cores, and 2 threads. On the CPU model, choose host pass-through. And we're going to give this 8196, which is 8 gigs of RAM, and 48 on the minimum. This will leave it default. We'll hit next. Disk, we're going to create a new disk for the OS to be installed on. We're going to install this on my fast storage, which is my M.2 drives that are in RAID. So we're going to give that 40 gigabytes. On our network, we're going to leave this as virtual IO. The MAC address is default, and then select the NIC you wish to attach this to, which these are bridge. And I want to attach this on my default network because that's where the camera resides. So this is bridge 1. Make sure you choose whatever interface is appropriate for your network. And then on the installation media, if you have not uploaded an image of the ISO image of whatever operating system you're going to use, this is where you upload it. If you've already gotten it uploaded, and I do here in this case, I'm going to use 23.10. So the reason why I'm not going to use 24 is because when I was testing out, I noticed the driver wouldn't work no matter what I done. And I could be wrong. I could have been doing something wrong, but I gave up and just went back to 23.10 because I knew it worked. And this is the case. We're going to use that image. So if you haven't uploaded it, do so now and upload it and select the image you just uploaded. GPU, when I said pass through, we're not going to pass through the GPU this way, because if you do, it takes away the system GPU, and it warns you. See, if you choose it, it doesn't leave one for the host, and it throws a fit, and it will mess your system up. So don't ignore that error. Never pass your GPU through TrueNAS this way. I don't even know why it's an option unless you have 2 GPUs available for the system. So never use the default GPU. All right, so everything looks good here. We're going to do save. All right, we have Frigate ready to go, but like I said, at this point, we're not going to attach the disk, and there's a reason behind it, because we want to set this up a special way. So we'll go to Frigate, we'll go to Devices, and we're going to Add, and we're going to do a PCI pass-through. So how do you know what device to select? How can you tell real quickly which ones you're going to use? So let's close out of that. I just about forgot to show you that. So we'll go to System, Shell, and we'll do sudo lspci-vv. Oops. I could type, guys. Or -v, I'm sorry. So this gives you a list of all the PCI devices on that bus. And if we scroll to the top, there's quite a few. So there's our graphics card. We know it's on bus 2. And if we scroll down, we should see our TPU here in just a second. All right, keep on scrolling. And here it is. It is on bus 5. So that is the 2 we need to choose. So let's go back to virtualization, Frigate, devices, add, PCI pass-through, and we know it was on 2. So there's device 2, or on bus 2. That'll be our video card. Perfect. Let's add another one, PCI pass-through, and search. And if we scroll down until we see 5. All right. So this is an issue in TrueNAS. When you create a virtual machine, and I have been doing tests with this beforehand, it comes up and shows it's not available. Sometimes it will throw an error message and you actually have to reboot TrueNAS in order to free up that PCIe device. But sometimes it just works. So it's a small bug in TrueNAS. So we know this is on bus 5 and we're going to select that. And I could be saying that wrong. I'm saying PCI bus. I'm assuming that's correct. So, you know what happens when you make an assumption. All right, so let's go back to our virtual machines. Like I said, right now, we're not going to attach the disk to the machine, and we will do that in the next step. So let's click Start. Maybe it'll throw that error. I don't know. Nope, it didn't this time. So we are good to go. If we go to Display, we'll put in that password we set up during the setup of the VM. And we can see that it's ready to install Ubuntu. So let's click Enter. And I'm not going to bore you with this. The only thing that you need to remember is when you get to the point where it asks you to install SSH, make sure you hit the space bar to checkbox that SSH server. All right, so let's pause the video while this installs. Not why, but while. All right, now we're ready to reboot the machine, and this is a small, I wouldn't say it's a bug. I think maybe it's a security feature, but it is pretty annoying. And if this happens to you, all you have to do is just hit refresh and just log back into the machine. I think it's a security feature, but it seems like it's really short. I guess if you happen to walk away and you don't want anybody to access your VM, I guess that's a pretty good feature to have. But in this case, it's a little annoying. So you're going to get this error message. You should know this by now. You have to unmount the CD-ROM. And the easiest, quickest way is just to power off the machine and go to your devices and delete that device. Because from here on out, you won't. And if you need to mount another ISO, it's just simple. Come in and add a device again. So that's the easiest, quickest way. And we'll go ahead and power it back on. While she gets started, we'll come here. And we should be able to come in and see it boot up. So if you didn't take note of the IP address during the installation process, you will have to go in and log in and get your IP address, because from here on out, we're going to be performing all of this in the actual terminal of Windows. And before we get started installing anything, we do need to go in and attach our hard disk. But I wanted you to see it boot up to make sure everything starts up the first time correctly and we can log in. So we'll give it just a moment to get going, and then we'll log into this machine and get its IP address. All right, it appears everything is set up correctly. Now, if we typed our stuff right, we should be able to log in and get our IP address if you did not take note of that. All right, so this one is 2.94, so this will be not necessarily your IP address, but whatever you have your local network set up to be. All right, so let's go ahead and shut this guy down. So we'll do sudo, and this is an old way of shutting down your machines, but it is a quick way. Init 0, we'll take it down immediately. All right, so before we created our disk, we come over here, we have Frigate storage. So let's go to our virtual machine, and then we're going to add a new device, add, and this time we're going to select disk. We're going to add a ZVOL. So let's go through here, and we should see Frigate storage right here. So we know it's on a storage HSD, Frigate storage, and then we're going to choose our mode. We'll do AHCI and leave that default and hit save. So we should have 2 disks now, and let's go back to virtual machines and let's fire Frigate up one more time. And let's go ahead and window this back over to this corner. Clear out our screen. And once that comes up, we should be able to actually see, well, not see, but terminal into this machine. And it takes a little bit, so we'll give it just a moment. So let's pause the video one more time. All right, it is up and going. So let's open up our terminal. Let's do SSH and our username and at that IP address we just saw. Type in yes to trust the certificate and put in that same password. All right, awesome. So you can see it's already balking at us, wanting us to do a release upgrade. We're not going to, because like I said, I tried to get it set up with .24 and I couldn't do it with the driver that's available for the TPU. So let's do clear. Now the next step is to get our storage mounted and our storage mounted and a file system put on it. And I found this really good article and I will link it in the description below. It's called how to partition and format disk drives on Linux. So let's go ahead and let's get our disk, and we're going to use fdisk in this case to do all this. Oops, I forgot to do sudo. Sorry, guys. All right, so we can see our disk now is attached. So it's disk and it's called SDB. I watched a funny video. I think it was this guy who goes through and tries to make old devices actually run. He got free. Why can't you've got the name of the device? Why not just give it that name? And then later on the video, he found out it does, but it won't in this case because it doesn't have a name. It's just a ZVOL. So this is what we need to take note of. It's SDB is the actual disk. Okay. So let's scroll down a little bit more and how to partition the disk. So we're going to use fdisk in this case. And remember, you need to make sure when you copy this that you don't copy his commands. We just need to copy from here over, because I said, remember, take note of the disk. So sudo v, oops, why did that not copy? Let's go back over here and copy this again. I love it when that doesn't work. And the disk that we want to run fdisk on. So SDB. And all right, so we've got this. This is the command prompt for fdisk. And if we scroll down right here, it says at the command prompt, type in to create a new partition. Do enter. And we want to make this a primary partition. And we will leave it default for one partition because that's what we need. Default sector size is right, or first sector, last sector, just leave it at default. And that has got it up and going. So here we create a new partition, one partition, type Linux, and the size of the 1 terabyte drive. All right, let's scroll down. Now you may see, you can hit P at this point if you want to. It basically runs down through everything. And it gives you what partition it made. Now, make a note as well. It has changed now to SDB1. So this is the disk, SDB, and then the partition is SDB1. So take note of that. Yours may be different than mine. You want to always make sure you do this. All right, so now we're ready to actually write this out. So in order to do that, you click W, and it's going to write that and start syncing the disk. And that is basically it on that part. Now we need to make our file system. In this case, we're going to make an ext4. And remember, make note of this right here. So SDB1. We're going to copy everything over here. And we'll sudo that again and paste. And then we'll do SDB1. And that is our partition that we want to create a file system on. All right, awesome. That is complete, and that should have it done. Now it is time to actually mount this disk up and do to get it persistent so we can actually store our clips. Sorry guys, I had a brain fart. All right, so here he's going to make a directory called var and cherry. We're going to make one, except we're going to make it something different. So we're going to copy that and we'll sudo again v, and we're going to call this frigate storage. All right, so we got a storage there. Now we're going to mount it. So we'll come down here and we're going to copy everything over this way, and we're going to make one small change. Oops, that didn't copy. So sudo over here and copy this, paste it in, and we need to change this drive to SDB1. Come to the end item, and we're going to mount that to Frigate storage. Awesome. Now we need to go in and change the FS tab. So this is fairly easy. So we're going to do sudo backslash, let's see, no, sorry, sudo nano backslash etc fs tab. All right, now this is where we're going to make it persistent, and we're going to store every time this machine boots, it's going to mount this drive. So we're going to copy everything here, and nope, hang on. No, I was not ready to paste that. So let's tab up and go back into FS tab and go down to the bottom. Sorry. And then we'll paste that in. And we need to change this to our storage and change this to SDB1. All right, that should get that. And if we write that to buffer, and if we come down here, we should be able to, where's that command at? Sorry, guys, I've lost my train of thought again. Let's go up here and let's run this command again. We should be able to see that disk that is mounted. Oh, why is that not copying? Nope, that's not the one I was looking for. Oh well. Trust me, it is mounted. I want to. Oh, where was it at? Okay. We're going to go. Hang on just a second. All right, kind of got choked up and aggravated. So this is the actual command I'm looking for. And then SDB, we should be able to see that that's where that is. That's what I'm looking for. You want to verify that that's all done correctly. So we got our SDB1 and it is mounted to that. Perfect. So if we do a quick reboot, and we'll come back in just a moment once this machine's up. All right, the machine is back up, and we should be able to run that command again and actually see that it persisted across reboot. Yep. So even after a reboot, that storage is still mounted to that folder path. So that's exactly what we want. This is where we're going to actually set up our config to mount our media to, and that's now I guess we're ready to get on installing Docker. So if you haven't installed Docker yet, Docker is actually the next step that you want to do. So this is the Docker install page for Ubuntu, and I will leave links again, like I said, to all these websites. And let's go ahead and copy this first command. Even though this is a fresh install, just go ahead and run it just to make sure that there's nothing installed, because we want to make sure we get the latest version of Docker. All right. Nothing to remove. That's perfect. Now let's go down here and copy this big old long command. And then we'll do sudo. We should be able to just do this. because it has the sudo commands in it, and that is ready to rock and roll. And then we're going to now install Docker. So this takes a little bit, so I'm going to pause this video again while it installs. All right, now that that's installed, we should be ready to go down here and run the last command to test if Docker did install successfully. So we'll copy that and paste that in, and we'll run that. As you can see, it went out and grabbed the image because it didn't exist, and now it says hello from Docker. So that means Docker is successfully installed, and you can do a sudo Docker PS to verify that it was up and running. It's not up and running, but it's not running, but it does. I believe it shuts it down right after, but if you get that message, you're ready to move on to installing Frigate. All right, so let's go to Frigate's install page and installation. We're going to scroll down a bit, and we're going to talk about this real quick. We're actually using Docker, so it is recommended to use Docker Compose, and this is the actual Compose file that they have. This is just generic, but it is really close to what you want to do. So I've already got that open. Let me get this pulled back up because I had to reboot the machine. So we have our Docker file here. Let's pull this over so you can see it. You can see that it is basically the same. I did take out a couple things at the end, the environment and the RTSP password. I don't believe that is required because that is going to go into the config, and we'll talk about the config here in just a moment. All right, so we'll go over this. Services Frigate, name is Frigate, the container. This is going to be, you want it privileged true. This may not be necessary in all setups, but I just left it as true. The restart will leave the same. This is where the image is going to pull from. Now this SHM size, you need to set this according to the number of cameras, and I believe there's a calculation on their page. I just went ahead and set it to 200 in this instance. I commented out the USB pass-through for the Coral TPU because we're not using the USB. And we're going to also leave this here as well, because this is actually how we're going to pass through the PCI Coral TPU. And then we need to leave this in and uncomment this other one as well, because we're not running a Raspberry Pi 4. Here, we need to change this couple instances here. We need, well, we're not quite ready to get there, but we know that we put this in var. And we need to change this to Frigate -storage. All right, and we'll leave that as media because it will create that for us. And we'll leave this as default, and the rest of this as well in the volumes. Under the ports, if you notice, if we go back to, install, sorry. If you go back to this, it has this commented out. In order to actually access this box for the first time, you have to run this as uncommented to get to this machine to be able to go in and set up the admin password or get the one that it auto generates. So leave port 5000 uncommented. Okay, so that is the Docker Compose file in a nutshell. It's very simple Compose file. There's nothing too elaborate to get this up and going. So the next step is we have to actually get our TPU working, because if we go here, let's clear our screen real quick and do ls PCI-V, you'll notice it's here. Let's scroll down. Here is our TPU on PCI bus 8, and it does not have a driver loaded, because if you look at here, it says kernel driver in use and modules, the i95, and it says the same thing here. We actually have to get a driver installed now. So this is actually where it kind of got a little tricky to get set up. I want to give a shout out to this gentleman's YouTube channel. He does a very good job of walking through. This is actually Proxmox. He is setting up on an LXC container, but it kind of gives you a good run through. You kind of got to do a little guessing, and that's why I'm going to take all the guesswork out for you and actually show you how to get this TPU set up. So if you go to his page, if you come up here to the top and scroll down, he is using Podman and a couple different other things, but we're going to start right here, and we're going to copy this command, and we're going to set the time zone. Set this according to your time zone. Let's CHAI. Oops, that's not how you spell Chicago. Hang on just a second. Oh, I'm so stupid. It's CHICAGO. And we'll put in our password. I'm sure I typed that wrong. Nope. Authentication failed. Let's run that command one more time. All right, there we go. Authentication complete. So our time zone is now set. Before we do anything, we really need to get our TPU up and going. So we're going to skip over the install Frigate first, and we're going to go down to his install Coral TPU drivers. So here's where the get you comes in. So Google cannot be bothered to update their repo with a build that works with a recent Linux kernel. As a Proxmox 8.1 and Linux 6.5, with Linux 6.5, the gasket package that is broken. So there are a couple options here. You can do it this way, but there are some stuff that I think he left out. There's some dev packages that need to be installed, and we'll go over that here in just a minute. But if we scroll down just a little bit more, where's he at here? Where's it at? Yeah, right here. I almost overlooked it. This is the actual driver that we're going to get. I've already downloaded, but if you copy this line right here, if I can be bothered to get it copied, we'll copy that out. We're going to open up a new tab, and we're just going to go ahead and get this driver. It should download it for you, okay? You can see that I already have it downloaded, and I'll explain why here in just a moment. All right, so we have our driver downloaded, and it got a little tricky because when I tried to run these commands up here, I could not get them to work. So I started to look at it, and I found this other page. It's actually on the forums for Proxmox, and this guy gives you a whole step through of what to do. And then it gets even crazier. So we know that we haven't installed this package yet. 99% sure Git is installed already, but we're going to go ahead and do it again just to make sure, and it doesn't need to be updated or upgraded. And then this, we need these dev scripts. I don't think that copied, but we'll go ahead. So sudo v dev scripts, we'll let that install. And this takes just a moment, so I'll pause again. All right, now that the dev scripts are installed, we're going to run this next command. Let's go ahead and copy that out. Come over here and do sudo again. This doesn't take as long. It's pretty quick, so we'll leave it there. And we're going to try to do this way. Every time I've tried it, it has failed. And it's because something happens. The install doesn't work right on this DKMS. But we're going to give it another whirl. If it doesn't work, I will show you a workaround for it. So let's go ahead and put sudo in front of this. All right. Now we need to cd into that folder. Perfect. And then we're going to copy that, and then we'll come over here and do sudo again. And it failed. And I don't know why it's failing, because I think something happens with the DKMS package and it doesn't install right anymore. I don't know, but I do know a workaround for it, and we won't have to build the package, the driver package, to actually make this work. So let's cd into that, and let's run an app dash, let's do a sudo. I think let's run this command again, except that this time we're going to leave off the DH. Sudo app, dadgummit, app install DKMS. Yes. There's something wrong with that DH. I don't think it's the right one. So let's cd back into it to see if this works. Oops. And let's try to rebuild that package again. I really think it's a problem with the other. Yep. So that did not fix it. So there's really no workaround for this. That's why I had you download that driver. And the way to get that on there is through WinSCP. So if you don't have WinSCP, it's a very nice tool. It's free to use, and you can go in and actually see your machine in the back end and actually drag and drop files into it. So 192.168.2. Oh Lord, what was this IP address? Give me just a moment. All right, it was .94. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. So 94, and we'll put in our username, and we'll accept it. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. We don't need these anymore, so we'll delete those out. Oh, I ran them as sudo, so they're managed as root. But what we're going to do is we're going to get that driver from our downloads, and we're going to bring it over and just drop it right into the doc home folder. All right. We're going to close out of that. And if we do an ls, we now see that we have that driver. So now it's in time to install it. Oops. So we'll do a sudo again and do that. And put in our password, and I guarantee you this is going to fail. Oh, it will install. I don't know why it's failing on the other end, but it actually just works. So once you get that driver, now we can go verify that it's installed. So we can do cd/dev and do an ls. I think we're going to have to do a reboot. So let's do a quick reboot. So let me pause the video and let's reboot the machine. All right, the machine is up now. Let's do cd/dev again, ls. And now we can actually see the drivers are installed, and that is good. We want to see apex_0. And if we do cd back, let's clear our screen so we can see it good. So if we do sudo lspci-v and our password, if we scroll down to our bus 8, we can actually see now we have drivers loaded. So that is perfect. That is exactly what we want to see. And now it's time to get on to installing Frigate. I know I've jumped around a little bit, but you know, this is live. You know, I don't have a script wrote up. I'm just doing this by the seat of my pants. So before we set the time zone, and now we're going to make some directories. So it's just as simple as copy this and come back over here. Let's clear out our screen so we can see good. And do sudo and then paste that in. I hate when it does that. I wish the copy, I know that comments it out, but it just makes it look ugly. So, and we'll copy that. And we're going to make these two. Well, we don't have to make the media folder because we're actually we've already done this. So we really only need, let's do, we'll just edit this over here. We really don't need anything but config. So let's cd back into var real quick. All right, so you can see we got Frigate and Frigate storage. This is where our 1 terabyte drive is mounted to, and this is where our config is. So if we go to cd into Frigate, oops. We do an ls. This is where our config is at. So we need to drop this in. Let's go to cd one more deep, config, and let's do sudo nano config dot YML, or YML, sorry. All right, so now we're going to copy our config over, and let's talk about that just real quick. All right, so our config is fairly simple. We don't need much to do a test with, but there are all kinds of options that you can add into this. We'll even go in and add the option in for recording here shortly. but this is just to simply get us up and going to actually see that it does work. So MQTT, that is actually for if you're going to connect this to Home Assistant. In this case, we're not. This is for a TPU pass-through. This is where you will name the camera if you want to name it. So let's just call this cam 1. -1. And it's going to be enabled true. The path, this is where you'll put your RTSP stream in. And I did not want to show mine because in order to make it work, you have to put the password of the camera in right here. And then this is, you're going to give it this role as detect. And under detect, you're going to say true, put the width and height of your camera stream coming to it. And what objects would you like to track? And in this track, we're going to do person, dog, cat, apple, and banana. And these are some that I was testing out with. So let's copy our config over into that. And I'm going to pause the video just for a moment while I do that. All right, so we have our config saved. And now let's do our Docker compose file. So we're going to CD back one here. And we're going to put our Docker compose. So let's sudo nano again. We're just going to call this compose.yml. All right, so you've seen our Docker compose file a while ago. It's pretty straightforward. And we'll paste that into here. And we'll do Control X and write that to buffer. Yes. All right, so we're almost ready to fire up Frigate. But let's go in and take a look one more time at our Docker compose file. And let's make sure we have all this right. So we should be Frigate storage and media. That looks good. Frigate and config, and that looks good as well. We've created all those folders. I believe we're ready to try this out. So hopefully this will work. So let's Control X out of that. And I found this really nice command here that I like using for bringing my Dockers online. And then we will paste that in, but we have to make a slight change because our directory is different. So let's backspace everything out of here. And we'll do var frigate /compose.yml. And we should hit enter. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. You have to take the dash out and do a space. And now it's going to start pulling everything that we have and hopefully set this up correctly. All right, so we're going to pause this while it pulls everything and sets it up. All right, so you can see that it successfully created Frigate, and we should be able to browse to that port 5000 now and actually see our machine up and going. So 192.2.94:5000. And there's our camera. Yeah, my wife is absolutely going to love me because there she is asleep on the couch. Awesome. So everything successfully set up. That is sweet. Let's go to our log file. There is our actual password. Well, I know it sets up our password somewhere, but we can go in and change that. So there it is. Let's see. Did it detect the TPU? It should say it. Get started, blah, 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 DB, media. We haven't set up any recording yet. I know somewhere it says detects TPU. I want to scroll down. Yep, TPU found. So awesome. Everything is set up and ready to go almost. All right, so let's do one thing. That should be good. Yeah, that's golden, man. I mean, you're basically right now, you're set up and ready to run Frigate, except it's not recording. We have to go in and add that real quick. So let's go back to his page and scroll down just a bit. GPU pass through, we've already done that. All right, so we need to add in this record into our file. And the one thing I like about this, and I will have to blur out, where did it go? Here we go. I'll have to blur out this password because I don't need you guys knowing it. But if we go into config editor, we don't have to no longer edit our config in the command line. We can actually add it here. So let's go here. And where did he add that at? Let's go, he added it right after the detector. So let's go here. We'll hit enter, come back over, and we will paste that in. And we're going to change this to dog. Well, we'll add a dog in. I got a cat too. So dog, 15. And that's basically all you have to do. I mean, if you want to start recording, you add that in, hit Control X, or I mean, not Control X this time. We're not in Nano. So save and restart. This can take up to 1 minute. It usually doesn't take that long. So let's go back. It is still reloading. So you can see their CPU. It's got all kinds of neat stuff. Well, it is still reloading. While it's reloading, let's look at this real quick. So let's cd ... Let's go back and let's cd into Frigate -storage. Let's do an ls. You can see that we have our media folder. And there's all our stuff. So we should be recording. I mean, now you can see we got that. I don't know if we'll get any motion. Let me go and pause this real quick and we'll set an apple up in front of it and see if it detects an apple. All right, give me just a moment, guys. Well, I knew it would make a fool of me. It may be that the canister's too tall and it's not picking that up, that's an apple, but I swear to you guys, oh, that's not very good. But you can see that it is actually recording and a person was detected. So if we go through the clip, you'll see me walk through the house. And somebody brought in some peanut butter M&Ms. My God, that is my weakness. I wish nobody had done that. So I chomped down on some peanut butter M&Ms. So I'm not sure why it's not saying that's an apple. It normally does because I've tested it 100 times. I promise you it does work. And the TPU is working. So to give you a wrap up of this video, I know it's a rather lengthy one, but I wanted to show you everything that I ran across and all the issues that I had actually getting this to work. And I hope you find this video very useful for you. If you want to try out Frigate, it is a pretty neat and pretty robust program because we only touched and scratched the surface of what Frigate can do. If you got cameras that are far more advanced than what this one is, I just wanted a proof of concept. Could you take a cheap camera and bring it in and actually give some smarts to it using AI and that TPU? Yeah, absolutely, you can. It works. But if you got some advanced cameras that have like PTZ, you can actually set up stuff to motion follow people with Frigate. It's really wicked all that what Frigate can actually do. But get in there and explore it. You know, go in and add those options into your config and make this thing do and tweak it how you want to. The only one downside I found out about the TPU is each tensor processing unit takes up a PCI lane. So depending on what you put it in my case, in this NAS, that Wi-Fi slot that we installed it on, it's only a by one slot. So I'm only actually getting one TPU tensor processing unit. So make sure that what you put it in has at least two, it's a by two slot, and you'll be able to take full advantage of your TPU. Ease of install. Yeah. Once I got it all figured out, it's pretty easy to install. I mean, but it was the pain of making sure, or not the pain of making sure, the pain of getting it up and running and following through, trying to figure out why Google doesn't keep its repositories up to date, and then going through the one command line and figuring out that don't work. Then what's the next step? So like I said, I will leave all the links in the description of this video of all these sites. And guys, if you like this video or like my channel, you know, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to us, and I'll keep on making these videos. And guys, I'll catch you in the next one.